Hi everyone, it's Roya. I hope you are doing great, and as always, it's an honor to have you by my side. In this video, I'll share my initial impression regarding the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie and approach this carefully. I haven't had the opportunity to examine all the details yet fully, and I don't want to overstate anything. Just a broad, preliminary reflection, before any deep analysis. Before everything, I want to say this case looks to me more like a kind of behind-the-scenes deal than a kidnapping for some reasons. First, not a single rational person is willing to take a hostage in such a vulnerable condition, which could easily shift the situation from extortion into something far more serious, even placing the perpetrator in the position of becoming responsible for someone's death. It would dramatically raise the stakes beyond a simple ransom scenario. Second, all the elements we've seen so far that are being presented as evidence of a kidnapping could have alternative interpretations very simply. None of these points, at least from what is publicly known, provide certainty that this is in fact a kidnapping. Every single detail can be read differently. So when it is claimed that this is a kidnapping and that money has been demanded, I can't ignore the possibility that the financial demand itself could simply function as a smokescreen, a cover for something happening behind the scenes. Let me walk you through a few of the points that could be interpreted differently, points that, in my view, should not automatically be treated as clear signs of kidnapping or violence. I'd like to briefly examine a few of them here, as we see in this footage, which could be considered the only significant piece of video evidence the police have obtained in this case, and the main source of much of the speculation. We observe an individual whose gender, in my view, is not clearly identifiable. If I had to assign probabilities, I would say there is perhaps a 51% chance this person is a woman and a 49% chance this person is a man. The reason I lean this way is the following. First, I cannot fully accept the assumption that the area around the upper lip or below the lower lip, what some people interpret as a mustache or goatee shadow, automatically indicates that this person is a man. It's difficult for me to believe that if someone has gone to great lengths to hide their identity, why expose the very part of the face that plays about 50% role in identifying a person, which is their gender? Unless, of course, the intention was to mislead. The second point concerns the proportions of the skull. Even in human figure drawing, the head serves as a standard unit for calculating the proportions of other body parts. Here, the head appears disproportionately large compared to the body. If that were this person's natural skull size, in my opinion, it would be such a striking and unusual feature that would make the person extremely easy to recognize. In my view, it would significantly reduce the likelihood that someone with such a memorable appearance would go unnoticed over the course of their life. However, I cannot rule out the possibility that multiple mask layers were used as part of a deliberate attempt to deceive law enforcement. Beneath what appears to be a ski mask, it is conceivable that an additional silicone mask layer was used, which not only changes the real feature of the person, but also potentially allows something like a flashlight, which was inserted between the lips, to be secured between the person's actual face and the silicone mask. Out of curiosity, I submitted the image to an AI tool to remove the apparent ski mask layer. The result was interesting, but it must be noted that there is no credibility to the result. However, one point might be noticeable, which is that, even after the surface mask was digitally removed, what appeared underneath resembled something almost alien-like, similar to commercially available silicone masks sold online or in Halloween costume shops. Again, I am not presenting this as proof at all. The other point I want to add about this footage is that, to me, this person is not alone, because it seems to me that in this footage, as the individual approaches to pick some plants and position them in front of the doorbell camera, it seems as though someone off-camera, standing out of sight, asks them something. This person turns and gestures toward the plants, holding them in their hand, and answers the other person, who might be related to this photo. If the differences between them I have found here are correct, and are not because of the light condition, then these are two individuals, and to me, they are probably a couple, maybe spouse. Now, the main part of my take is this part. Contrary to those who believe this person was unprepared, startled, and unaware that their image might be captured, I see it differently. I don't believe they appeared shocked or caught off guard. At the same time, I do not view them as hardened criminals, nor do I believe they have necessarily committed crimes before, or are connected to the alleged abduction of Nancy even. In my view, the use of the flashlight in his mouth was not about letting their hand be free. It seems more deliberate than that. When they stand directly in front of the doorbell camera, they activate the flashlight from within their mouth to disrupt the exposure. This would significantly reduce facial clarity and make accurate identification more difficult. That suggests awareness, not panic. It indicates at least a basic understanding of how light can interfere with a camera's ability to capture clear facial details. However, I do not interpret this as proof of violent criminality. If anything, they appear more like a couple who may have been hired or instructed to perform a specific limited task, perhaps without full knowledge of the broader context. They resemble an ordinary couple rather than experienced offenders. It is possible they were simply paid to carry out a staged action, ring the doorbell, position themselves in a certain way, complete a specific sequence, and leave. They may not have fully understood the larger narrative or implications of what they were participating in. In fact, it is even conceivable that only later, perhaps through media coverage, they realized the significance of the situation they had been involved in. For these reasons, I do not consider them the primary or genuine perpetrators. As a possibility, purely as a hypothesis, it could even be that the individuals who demanded money in exchange for revealing who is holding Nancy might be these people. I don't even believe this person necessarily entered the house, let alone abducted Nancy. In my view, their role may have ended right there at the door. That may have been the extent of their task. Whatever happened beyond that point could have taken place in the back of the house, out of sight, and possibly carried out by other individuals entirely. Even if the presence of blood leads some people to assume violence, I am not personally convinced that it automatically proves a violent act. Nancy is someone who reportedly requires daily medical care, and it is conceivable that blood could have been drawn under medical circumstances. A few drops could then have been placed near the door to create a particular impression. To me, it seems more likely that whatever truly occurred happened elsewhere, away from this visible area, and potentially involved people other than the individuals we see in the footage. Dear viewers, that was my very raw and at one glance observation, and was not other than speculation. There is no claim for accuracy. I hope whatever this is, it ends in a good way, and Nancy gets back home very soon. Thank you for watching. Take care.